career burnout and things that I would like you to try. I don't think that these are things, by the way, everyone, that you have to try in the order that they're presented. I'd like you to pick and choose 2 or 3 that you want to start out with and see how those go. And then finally, we do want you to obviously make this real. How often have you gone to a webinar and, had great intentions about implementing the action steps that you came up with there? And I'm raising my hand over here too. This happens to me as well. And the phone rings, your kids get sick, et cetera, et cetera. I have an 11-year-old son, so I know how that can go. But we want you all to come up with at least one action step that you will take in the next week. And by the way, too, one of the things that we'll share with you is if anyone feels like we don't get to your question at the end in our Q&A portion today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to do a free 20-minute career strategy session with you to help you either with very specific advice based on what we're talking about today. If you feel like your situation is very unique, happy to do that. And also if you have any questions. Finally, I know that Linda mentioned that you will get a recording of the webinar after we're finished today. Please feel free, if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint slides, don't hesitate to reach out to us at admin@halliecrawford.com. We're happy to share any of the tools that I'm talking about today and the PowerPoint slides as well, so that you can have those and mark them up and make notes. So first of all, let's talk about why this career burnout, quote unquote, can happen. There's lots of different reasons, and this is part of what I want you all to be thinking about, not just, okay, how do I feel? Is it that I'm bored? Is it that I'm overworked or whatever it is? You have to be specific and understand, what is going on for you and what the scenario or situation is in order to then fix it. If you don't know what the root cause is, you can't address it head on, okay? So there's lots of reasons why this can happen, and there's some examples here on the slide. You may have some other examples. Please feel free to share those in the chat box as we go, and Linda can read those out at the end. But if you take a look at the slide here, the first one is it could be that you've been in a specific job or a specific type of role or at a specific organization, even if you've moved around for an extended period of time and you're just kind of getting, it's like the same old, same old. You may be called upon to do something that you're great at or excel in, but no longer enjoy. We talked about this just a moment ago already. It could also be that situations, life or career changes come up for us. This is just a normal thing. We have kids, the death of a parent, like lots of different, life happens. And sometimes what is rewarding for us can change based on these life or career changes that happen to us or that we implement on our own, either way. But what's rewarding to you and what your career values might be now are going to be different, at least to a certain extent, than what they were when you were a younger professional, okay? That's just a normal thing. Our career values, by the way, shouldn't change extremely. They shouldn't change like to a completely different brand new list, but the way you define what some of those values are may have changed over time, and some of your values may have shifted in the order of priority for you, okay? And then finally, what all of us experience as we, move up the ladder, so to speak, that our workload can increase, obviously, as our competence increases. And sometimes that in and of itself can cause burnout. I'll tell you all that we have had clients point blank come to us and say, right out of the box, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to manage people because I want to stay doing what I've, got into this industry to do. That's one of those kind of catch-22 situations. It's tough for people. In order to move up, in a lot of cases, make more money, they have to move into a management role, and then they're left with, gosh, I'm more dealing with people now or managing projects versus doing the actual design, for example, that I was doing and why I got into this in the first place. So sometimes not just our workload increases with the competency, but also our jobs can change over time. So these are just some of the examples that you might feel that sense of burnout. So I want you to start to write down, please, what it is for you, what's been going on that you feel quote unquote burned out. And I do want you to think about as well, everyone, how long you've felt this way, because it could be, and you need to consider whether it's just situational and it's only been this way for a few months. Well, it could pass. It could be because of the project or task that you're working on right now. So you also need to make sure that you don't kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and make an assumption that things are always going to be this way, especially if you've only felt this way for a little while. Maybe there are some slight or subtle shifts that you can make in order to feel better. So the negative impact or the result of this burnout can be that you're bored, you're lethargic at work, you're disinterested, or you're overwhelmed. And as a result, understandably, we all become, if we feel this way, less effective. We become less efficient and we become less successful as a result too. So this is part of why it's not a good thing. So we want to go ahead and Linda, if we could do the first poll here, I'll pull up the next slide. Want to hear from you all, kind of your general assessment based on some of the ideas that we have. What is it that is causing your burnout? And it's okay, by the way, if it's something else that's not on this list, but let's start with this list for today. So we'll give you a moment to do this, and then I've asked Linda to read the results out to me because, number one, I can never find them on the dashboard, and number two, my eyes are not as good as they used to be, so I can't see the results anyway.
Thank you all. We still have some votes coming in. Pardon. It looks like we have about 55% of you have been in a job, role, or company for an extended period of time. 11% is asked to do something you excel at but no longer enjoy. 24% have had some life career change and your values have changed. And about 10% of you, your workload has increased.
Gotcha. Thanks, Linda, for sharing. Really appreciate that. So I'm actually glad to hear that it's only 10% that the workload has increased, just because we have a lot of clients, as you all can imagine, that just feel so much more stressed out at work with, having access to or being able to, their boss can, talk to them over their phone and that kind of thing, obviously. So 55%, having it been a long time that you've been in your specific role or organization, I do want you to think about, and let's go to the top 10 tips here that I'm going to share with you today, and we'll go into each of these in greater depth in each of the slides. But I want you to think about, for those people, the majority of you who it's been a long time, there may be some things that you can do just to kind of mix it up. So I want you all to, and this goes for everyone actually on the call, is I want you all to try some of these things first before you decide you need a more dramatic change. Because one of the things that we have found over doing this for a long time with our clients is that a lot of times when they come to us, they're pretty frustrated because it's been several years, for example, that they've been thinking, gosh, my job is not a fit anymore. Whether it's they're burned out, they have a difficult boss, whatever the situation is. And when we talk with them and work with them through coaching to help them really clearly get a sense of what's truly going on, 9 times out of 10, they're able to either make some changes at their current role or move within their current organization, and or they're able to make more of a subtle shift in their career versus a dramatic change. When we kind of, I say like bring them back down to earth a little bit so they can be a little bit more practical about the whole thing and less emotional, they start to realize that, gosh, there are things I could probably do. Look in your own backyard first. Let me try these things first. And then if they're not working after 6 months, it's okay to then go ahead and make a change if it's not working, for you in the long run. And we will talk about the ways to determine whether your career path and your job currently is the right fit for you or not, so that you can do that assessment as well. So first of all, these are our 10 tips. We want to assess what's going on first. Make a list of 5 things that need to be different, just as a beginning point, as a starting point, so you know what you're looking at. Stay in the know and be engaged and involved in your industry. Putting yourself out there, that's part of that one. Volunteering, participating more actively with your team, especially if you're not doing so as much. Talking with your boss and or HR, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. Taking a class, again, to keep your skills fresh, but also get you back kind of re-engaged in what you're doing. Embrace or cause change and create an action plan. So let's talk about the first step here, and this is assessing what's going on. Take a step back, and one of the things that we want you to think about, a question that we want you guys to consider, is what do you want in your job? Get back to like the passion or enjoyment, and what I mean by this is think about, why did you start or begin in your field from the very beginning, a long time ago? Get back to what brought you into that industry, so to speak, in the first place. And what has changed since then that has caused these, this career burnout to happen? It's even helpful, by the way, to think about when you're writing out what you want in your job at this point in your lives, think about what you want in your life, not just in your work, okay? Because when we work with our clients, this is where we look at and help them identify their personal values, not just their career values, but their personal values as well. Because part of why your career may be less of a fit for you, maybe because your personal values have shifted over time too. What we always tell our clients is that you don't have to, if you have your list of personal values that you're saying, okay, I'm okay with honoring these, just in my personal life. They don't have to be present in my career. Your job or your career cannot smush those values or go against them at the very least. So even if your personal values don't have to be honored in your career path, which is fine, you can't have a job that goes against those personal values, and they may have changed if your situation has changed over time. So when you're thinking and working about, and this would be a journaling exercise, so please write down for me, everybody. One of the first things we want you to do is take a step back, think about why you got into your job in the first place, number one. And number two, what do you want in it now? And think about, the list of things that you would want to be present in not just your job, but also in your personal life, and how your work can help support that in some way, shape, or form. And then as part of this assessment, think about, are you being overworked in any specific area? And that's part of the problem. Or are you doing too much of one task that at first you enjoyed, and now it's taking over your job and you don't like it anymore? I always tell people, and then we'll go to the next slide here in just a second, I always tell people to think about their career as a pie, if you will. And the main task, or kind of your main role, doctor, lawyer, banker, whatever it is, that you perform would be the big piece of the pie. Like for me, it would be I'm a career coach. But I also have strengths and other tasks that I enjoy performing as well. And if I had to be a coach all the time, all day long, I would get really bored and really frustrated. I actually enjoy marketing and communications, as well as writing articles and giving speeches and presentations, like I said earlier. So the thing is, though, to let you all know, just using me as a quick example, I had a marketing and communications job before, and it was the wrong fit. I was miserable. So you need to think about your career as a pie, and what are the different strengths and actions that you perform during the course of your day, and are there any strengths or actions that you would like to perform more and just increase the size of that piece of pie, if you will? Because I just want to let you all know that that can make a huge difference in your satisfaction at work. Again, using me as the example, I was doing the marketing and communications all the time. And instead of 90% of my day, I would prefer for that to be like 15% of my day. And it's perfect for me now because I get to do those other things, but it's kind of icing on the cake in terms of what I do and having my business. So think about kind of the percentage of your day as well that you want to spend doing certain things, and that can give you clues to what may be off or wrong. Still on step number one in terms of assessment, this is the career model that we use with all of our clients to help them determine their ideal career path, but also to understand if they're in the right career path long term. I want to just walk through these pieces really quickly with you, and then we'll get to the second tip here. So if you take a look on the slide, we always start with fulfillment first with our clients. This is where your career values and your personal values would go. What is going to be, or what would be most meaningful and rewarding to you in terms of your work? And are you performing those tasks on a regular basis, or is part of that what is off for you? The enjoyment is, what are my top 5 or 10 most enjoyable tasks? I gave you my example just a moment ago. And I have the enjoyable tasks of marketing, communications, et cetera, like I said, but I don't want to go be a professional speaker on the road all the time. I want to be home with my son as much as possible, but be able to do webinars and workshops, every few months, whatever it is. Take a look at your strengths to identify, am I leveraging the strengths that I want to be leveraging on a regular basis? The right ones and the ones that I feel really good about. Studies have shown that if you are not leveraging your strengths on a regular basis, you will not be fulfilled at work. If you take a look at this model here, everyone, the reason why these pieces are kind of falling into place like this is because think of it as building blocks, or like a puzzle, if you will. Each one impacts all of the others and vice versa. And you start with fulfillment, you go across, then you go up to education experience, personality type, environment, and compensation, okay? So these pieces need to fall into place as you're painting the picture of your ideal job, okay, and getting ideas or determining if you're in the right fit. Then you want to take a look at education and experience and say, okay, am I leveraging the coursework that, the classes I took at University of Chicago or anywhere else? And are those things that I'm using now that I actually want to use? It's okay, by the way, if you say, I'm okay with not using, some of the courses from my degree. That's not what I'm interested in. Totally fine, but you need to consider that piece as well. You want to think about whether you're leveraging your past experience in the way that you want to, and whether that's part of what's causing the burnout for you. You want to think also about your personality type, and this is a big one. So I'll pick at this one a little bit more here, is you need to, one of the main things in terms of personality type, everyone, is you need to think about whether you're more introverted or extroverted. And if you're spending the right amount of time during the course of your workday working with people or by yourselves. Keep in mind, everyone, that we are all a blend of introvert and extrovert. No one is just one or the other, even if your percentage on one end is very small. For example, I am 60% introverted and 40% extroverted. So I quote, or I tell people, that I joke with them that I'm an introvert that can pose as an extrovert when need be, okay? So think about what percentage you might be personality type wise, introvert and extrovert, and if you're spending the majority of your day in the right way with or without people, because that's where we get our energy. And if you're spending it, if it's out of whack, you're going to naturally just feel burned out and kind of tired regardless, because you're not either spending enough time by yourself to get recharged or with other people to get recharged. In terms of personality type here, you also want to think about, am I more of a leader or more of a doer? Am I more of a detail-oriented person or big picture strategic thinker? All of these elements of your personality type can help you enormously understand what things might be out of whack and could be causing this burnout, and if you're in the right fit. Finally, you want to think about the work environment, and obviously compensation is critically important. Some people can feel burned out in part because they feel not rewarded in terms of compensation or undervalued, okay? That could be part of what's contributing to it. So you want to think about that element as well. And then finally, with the work environment, if the culture of your organization or the values or vision from leadership, if those go against your values, that could be part of what is going on. And you also want to be in the right work environment that fits your personality type, more laid back or more structured, more formal or more casual. These are all things, everyone, that can contribute to the burnout, and it will help you pinpoint not just what is going on, but what changes you may need to make. So this can be kind of a checklist for you all to identify not just what may be off for you, but what are the things that you may need to change or adjust. And by the way, if a lot of the issues fall into several of the pieces here, then that may mean that you need to change roles, organizations, or move into a different industry. But like we said, we want you to try as much as you possibly can at your current role, just because obviously that's the low-hanging fruit, okay? All right, let's look at tip number 2. And please know, everyone, I'm watching the time, and we'll be able to get through all 10 in the time that we've told you. So tip number 2 is to write down and start to think about at least the top 5 things that need to be different based on the model that I just showed you. So when you do that assessment to say, okay, what's wrong, what's not working for me, make a list of the top 5 things. Start there. More than 5 is going to be kind of overwhelming. So let's kind of cap it actually at the top 5. And these are some examples that you could say, okay, based on what I've discovered, I'm not using enough of my, one of my strengths or whatever it is. You might say, okay, you need to reduce the use of one of my strengths or skills. I need to adjust the work environment. We've had clients come to us and find out that they're actually in the right role for them. They're in the perfect role. It's just that they're at the wrong company, and they need to go either do it at another organization that's larger or smaller, or newer, closer to like a startup, or more seasoned and been around for a longer time. We had one client, actually, she lived in Chicago. She worked at Ernst & Young, and at first when she came to us, she said, gosh, Hallie, I think I need to be a chef. And I was like, okay, well, we'll put that on the list, and we'll talk about a lot of other things. And she was one of those examples that when she used the model with us and kind of came back down to earth and took the emotion out of it, she realized that in a lot of ways, she was actually in the right role. The culture of her organization was great. It was her boss that was the difficult and the issue for her. She loved her team. She actually loved being a consultant and working on business strategy, et cetera. She decided that she wanted to do it in-house, kind of as an in-house consultant instead, and work within a company doing business strategy instead. So she had less travel, and for her, that was a better use of her strengths as well as the right work environment. So keep in mind, everyone, again, that 9 times out of 10, it's going to be more of a course correction. That's the good news in all of this, okay? One of the things I would recommend that you all do, and this is the tip here at the bottom of this slide, is to track your hours. Just take, the rest of today, for example, tomorrow and Monday, for example, and track your hours. Where are you spending your time during the course of your day? How long on each thing? So that you really get a sense of what your job is typically like for you on a regular basis. And if you need to choose a different day next week because your work, that your work day ebbs and flows depending on what day of the week it is, that's fine. So track your hours, though. Just put a journal on your desk or a piece of paper, whatever it is, and for at least 2 days, track where you spend your time so that you can get a clear sense of what is going on for you in your job, because you cannot make any decisions without taking a step back here and really looking at, okay, what am I doing on a regular basis, so that then you can define and identify what the themes are and what the possible issues are. So action item number 2, after you make this assessment, is to track your hours to find out, gosh, is my typical workday aligning with the ideal career model in the way that I want it to, okay? By the way, just if you feel like any of this is overwhelming and want to talk to me about it a little bit more and have additional questions for your specific need, just as a reminder, happy to do the free 20-minute career strategy session. Just email me and we can get that set up. All right, so as part of number 2, taking assessment, after you've identified the top 5 things that you want to change or adjust, you need to make a decision. Okay, what can I do at my current job? I'm going to at least try these things, and then let's say I'm going to try them for 3 months, and then at that point I'm going to take stock and say, all right, maybe I do need to make a change in terms of role or in terms of organization. Okay, so after you've identified what those top 5 things are that you want to change, you want to start identifying action steps that you can take in order to fix all of these issues that are going on. Let's get to those action steps. So tip number 3 is going to be one of our first ones, and this is staying in the know, so to speak. We all want to feel, at least the majority of our clients do. There may be some people out there that, especially if you're closer to the end of your career, that you're wanting to coast a little bit more, and that's totally okay. We've had clients come to us and say, I just want kind of a check the box, job for the moment. That's fine. But at least for those people, they want to feel at least a sense of challenge and reward in some way, shape, or form. So you want to think about things that you can do in the meantime to try to improve your current situation. Do you need to attend a class because you haven't done that in a long time, or sign up for something? Do you need to try a new skill set? For example, for me, I like to take at least one coaching course every year, and also take a leadership or time management class, something else that is related to what I do as a coach, but also related to what I do as a business owner and kind of other elements of my job. So by the way, it doesn't always have to be just about your industry or, new software or new skill sets for your specific job. It could be something else that makes you feel more productive and efficient. And by the way, adding to your skill set, obviously it makes you more marketable if you need to leave or if you decide to, and it makes you more marketable for that next promotion. So think about what are different ways that you can stay in the know. Have you been a little bit, slack, if you will, about, attending conferences within your industry or other things to kind of sharpen the saw on a regular basis? This is one of the things that you want to consider. And by the way, what I would do is I would set a goal for yourselves and say, for example, if you're a very strong learner, so on the Strengths Finder assessment, which we find is great to help people understand what their strengths are, and then you can identify whether you're leveraging them. And by the way, the website is strengthsfinder.com. It's a very low cost but very good test. One of their strengths on their top 32 strengths is learner. And so there are people out there, I don't have that on my list of strengths or values, but there are people out there that may say, I need to attend like some kind of class or training once a month, and that's fine. And remember, it doesn't always have to be something that's professional. It could be something that's personal, but because you're more inspired and engaged, in your personal life, it's the all boats rise with the tide idea, okay? So consider how often and what your plan would be every quarter for training and development? And is it something that you want to address every quarter, or is it twice a year you want to do something, if that's enough for you? Whatever works best, the idea is create a plan, set goals for yourselves so that you know what you need to do on a consistent, regular basis, okay? Tip number 4 is to put yourself out there a little bit more. What happens to us, and especially for those introverts out there, and like I said, I am one, so I can speak to this and understand it. Sometimes when we get bored, overworked, burned out, we tend to go into our shell even more, and it's kind of a never-ending cycle and just gets worse. So one of the things to help you get more engaged in your current role and organization is to put yourself out there more. Just push yourself to do this, especially if your job tends to be a more solitary one. And even if you don't want a more extroverted role, we're not trying to turn you into somebody else, but putting yourself out there more will help you get more involved, maybe in a new project that someone is thinking about but hasn't brought it up or talked about it yet. Or match you up with a new team, like you'll learn about what's going on in your organization, and there may be a place that you want to volunteer your time a little bit more. So be more social and be seen, put yourself out there at events more inside your organization, but also outside your organization. You'll learn about new things that are going on and be invited to do more as a result, which can help you feel more engaged over time. So again, especially for those introverts out there, like I said, make a point to, okay, once a week, I'm going to reach out to, one person outside of my team within my organization, let's say, or I'm going to attend an industry association meeting once a month, and I'm going to really push myself to do that just so I can, get out of the office and feel more refreshed and engaged and learn new things that I may want to get involved in. Being seen like this too will help you get called upon more for projects and tasks that you want, in terms of your role, and also positions you in a better way, obviously, for getting promoted because you're more visible within and also outside your organization. Tip number 5 is something to consider, and this is volunteering your time, whether it's internally for other projects like we talked about a moment ago, or externally outside of work. This can be a personal or professional thing, but as I said before, all boats rise with the tide. When you feel more engaged in one area of your life, it tends to trickle into the other areas. You all know how this feels, I'm sure. So there are lots of websites now, which is great, that can connect you with volunteering opportunities. And there are some examples here on the slide. One of the things I did want to say, though, for everyone is we have had clients do remote volunteering projects. This is sort of still a new thing. We haven't had a lot of people hear about this before. It's actually really cool. One of our clients here in Atlanta, she wanted to get more adept at Google Analytics and helping an organization with their SEO and kind of really digging into the data and everything else. Well, she hadn't had as much experience doing that as she would have liked. So she signed up on idealist.org for a remote volunteer kind of position, if you will, to work on a team for, I think it was about 4 to 6 months, for a nonprofit organization in California that needed some help. She loved it because she was able to not just learn this new skill, she felt more marketable to prospective employers. It gave her more confidence about who she was as a professional, but she also was networking for her. She got a great testimonial from the team leader as well as from the organization that they did this work for. So it had a lot of, lucrative benefits as well for a possible job search if that's the, direction you end up going to. But like we talked about earlier, just that, her getting re-engaged and learning something like that was so inspiring for her on a regular basis during that time. So consider volunteering your time in some way, shape, or form. Number 6 is to participate more actively. And this goes back a little bit to put yourself out there more, but it's kind of a slight shift on this one. Participate more actively within your team. So there are probably some small things that you can do where you may realize that you're kind of hiding out in your current job because you're feeling burned out and you're just not as into it. And if you volunteered your time, if you spoke up a little bit more in meetings, if you, did an assessment of some challenges or problems that you all were having, but took some time actually to think of some solutions, it could actually make you feel a little bit more engaged and inspired again. We kind of get in a rut. It's understandable. I shared with you that happens to me as well. So if you think about, okay, do I need to just speak up more in meetings? Because if I do that, I'll be more engaged. I'll get more ideas or need to ask questions more, whatever it is. It could be as simple as that. It could be that something's been driving you nuts in terms of a process or system, at your organization and within your team. And you need to finally say, I need to take the time to figure out if there's a solution to this. And talk with a mentor about that, or network with people at an association meeting to find out what they do about this problem, for example. So force yourself to get more actively engaged in your job, but in a different way, by taking a different perspective or trying on something new, okay? Tip number 7 is to communicate with your boss regularly, even if you're in a management position. And I would say too, by the way, if for any of you, you feel like it's better to communicate with HR about staying engaged, in my job and staying challenged and moving up, that's okay too. It depends on your relationship with your boss and what they're like. But you want to communicate with people above you as well as below you and your teammates on a regular basis, not just in performance reviews. They will keep you in mind more for projects that may come up. And also, you want to talk to people and ask them, especially if you have employees, what do you need to do to stay fulfilled and effective? Ask your boss and let them know, I'd really like to get involved in this, this, and this. And don't just wait for them to, figure it out via ESP that, that assume that they're going to know that you want this, whether you want to move up or you want to try something new. Be proactive about it. And if the case is that you're being overworked, think about who else you could call upon to pitch in to help you out, especially if it's someone that has a different skill set or strength from you that really could add to the mix, and it would be easy for them to pitch in because they know how to do this task really, really well, okay? So be clear about, at the bottom of the slide here, everyone, it says communicate about your long-term career goals. And what I mean here is you need to be clear first about what your long-term career goals are. The career model at the beginning, will help you with that. But then you want to communicate with others, the right people within your team, your supervisor, HR, whatever is appropriate, about what your long-term career goals are so that they can help you make it happen. Don't just try to do it all on your own. It's much more effective if you're clear about it, you put it out there, you go to your supervisor, for example, with your strategic career plan, and we have a template for that if anybody wants it, by the way. Feel free to just email us. We have that for you. But you want to be really clear about what your next steps are, and you want to communicate that to others because they can help support you along the way. Tip number 8 is to take a class. We alluded to this one a little bit already. There's lots of different online classes that you can take these days, which are fantastic. Lynda.com is a great one. That one is at the bottom of the list, but that's one of our favorites. Onlinecourses.com, Coursera. There's lots of different options out there. We've also found that classes in person, like through the General Assembly, these are professional development classes that our clients have told us are fantastic. They're opening up offices. I'm sure there's one in Chicago, all over the country. But check out too, like going back to, the Alumni Association. And Lynda, if we can go ahead and get the second poll started, how many have taken an online course, that would be great. Check out the University of Chicago Alumni Association too. It's attending these webinars does something to help you learn. So just find a way to get more engaged, whether it's a full-time class or it's a one-time shot, whatever works best for you. Put yourself out there to kind of check out what might help you add a new skill set to your repertoire that you may have been thinking about but avoiding, or something that would kind of get you back in the game and more enthusiastic. And Lynda, whenever we're ready, feel free to share the results.
Thank you. So we have 68% reporting that they have taken an online class and 32 have not yet.
Good, 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 good. So I'm glad that a lot of people have. That reminds you all that you're not alone. These are really, really good. One of the things I wanted to mention is that we have had people, get a certification instead of feeling like, oh, I have to go get an additional degree. A lot of times, if you look at your industry-specific association, that can be a great place to identify coursework or certifications that you may want to obtain that can help either shift you in a different direction if that's what you decide you need to do, or help you re-engage, in your current role, okay? So think about certifications as well, and always look to, I think it's a great place, in addition to looking at like lynda.com, for example, always look to your industry association too. People tend to forget that one, so I always like to bring it up. Number 9 is to embrace change. So one of the things when we get kind of burned out is It's because we're kind of in the same old routine, right? So to give yourself a new challenge, but also to add to your experience and skill set, think about what are the things that are broken where I am now. And this kind of piggybacks on what we said a little bit before. But as a separate action item, make a list of changes or improvements or efficiencies that really need to happen in your organization, but nobody's doing anything about it. I'm sure that we could all come up with a list of those, okay? So take some time to identify an issue at work or a challenge or an inefficiency that you would like to take on and do something about that would make you feel less burned out, but also help everyone else and kind of get you more engaged again, okay? Are your competitors, for example, just rolling all over you? Do you need to suggest using a new sales technique and go learn about it? Do you need to find a new way to engineer a project or a product your company is kind of resisting doing and they're doing the same old thing? That you could try to take this on at home, for example. We had a client, one of our clients was an engineer in technology, and he would tinker in his basement all the time, and it kept him engaged in his full-time job because it gave him new ideas and new ways to approach, his paid gig. So think about and be willing to, I shouldn't say just embrace change, but also initiate change and kind of push it forward. And tip number 10 is to create an action plan. So we've talked about several action items that you all can take in the past, since several minutes here, things that I want you to try doing. I want you to pick at least 2 or 3. And then as you're starting to think this through and determine, okay, what are the action steps that I need to take? Think about how long can I stay at my current organization? How long am I willing to give this? And what are the different things I'm going to try in that period of time? I would recommend, by the way, at least 3 months. Okay, because it takes 3 months anyway to develop a new habit and to try different things. You may say to yourself, it'll be 6 months to a year because, oh, guess what? There are lots of things that I can do at my current organization that will help me enhance my skill set, and then I can move on, okay? So as part of this, set 3, 6, and 12-month goals for yourselves in order to get out of this rut and move out of the burnout. Think about whether you need to move into a different organization and, what timeline that needs to be for you. Whatever it is, write down these goals. And Linda, let's go ahead and do the third poll if we can. I'm curious how many people have a strategic career plan, okay? But this is what we're talking about right now. Your strategic career plan should have all of the components of the career model that we referenced before, and it should have, as a beginning, 3, 6, and 12-month goals. These are the things I'm going to do so that you can track your progress towards them and make sure you're moving forward. All right, and Linda, I'm ready for the results. I know you just put it up, so we may need a second either way.
Thank you, everyone, for voting. We have 11% reporting that they do have a strategic career plan, 68% reporting that they do not, and 21% unsure what a strategic career plan is.
Okay, thank you all for participating in that and being honest and sharing. So please feel free. There's 2 things. One of the things I wanted to share is on this slide. We do have a recording of a webinar that we do, the 3 keys to unlocking your strategic career plan. It helps you write it and understand what it is, but also how you get started on it. As part of this, though, everyone, we have an Excel sheet template that is filled out with the components that you need to consider and the pieces that you need to consider in order to create your strategic career plan. So please don't hesitate to ask us for that. We're happy to share that template. Our clients love it because once they get to the point where they understand and they know, okay, these are the changes I need to make, they love having that tangible thing to latch on to, that tool in order to help them move forward. So feel free to ask us for that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about taking action, and let's move to the Q&A portion of today. I want you all to write down, please, at least 2 action steps that you will take in the next week. Here are some examples on this slide. It could be review the model, it could be talk to your boss or someone in human resources about, what you need to do to adjust your role, participate more actively in meetings, whatever it is. Please go ahead and start to write those down for us. And also, as we get to the Q&A part, I wanted to just close my portion of things for today with this quote. This is the one that always pushes me outside my comfort zone when I need to try something new to kind of mix things up, if you will, is keep in mind, everyone, the greatest risk in life is not taking one. Do you want to say when you're 80, sitting in a rocking chair, hopefully retired, right, that you tried something new to get back in the game, or that you didn't do anything at all and just stayed where you were, burned out? You know what the answer is. You want to do something about it. Okay, so Linda, if you could start to field through any questions that come through, that would be great. We've got a few minutes to do that, everyone, and I appreciate your time today. I get excited, so I tend to talk a lot and say a lot of things, but hopefully it was helpful.
We've got a lot of really good things. That was helpful. As a reminder, please continue to send in your questions. Here's the first one for you, Hallie. There's a lot of talk about self-care as a popular term. How does that factor into managing burnout? What are your recommendations for career self-care?
Yeah, so just self-care. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of allergies going on. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Self-care is really important. So one of the things that can impact people enormously in terms of being burned out is just, flat out stress, or, feeling or being out of shape or not eating as, healthy as they could, especially our clients who are like in sales or consulting and travel a lot. So self-care, honestly, should be the first thing on your list above anything else that we've talked about today. So I do want you to take the assessment, because you might be one of those people that, gosh, I'm great at self-care. It's not that. Okay, fine. Look at the career model, but make sure that that is one of the first things that you're addressing and looking at, because that, how you feel personally, physically, your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, that needs to come first, because any tweak that you make at work is not going to have nearly as big of an impact unless you're exercising, managing your stress, taking breaks at work, getting that social time if you need to. Like we talked about with the introvert extrovert, that really does have to come first. That's your foundation, honestly, that everything else should stand on. So I'm glad that question was asked. Thank you.
Thank you. One more. So you mentioned being able to talk to HR about experiencing career burnout. What is your advice for navigating finding a support system within your office, or do you recommend talking to colleagues about burnout, or is that something best left outside of the office environment?
Yeah, another great question. So you do want to be smart about this, obviously, because you don't want to share. First, you don't want to come across as a complainer or a whiner. That's not going to work. And you don't want to share with people who are not going to be supportive, or who are going to take it and, for lack of a better way of saying it, do something bad with that information. So if you have a supportive coworker or colleague within your team or outside of your team, or maybe it's just a friend or a colleague at another organization, someone who is supportive that you can trust to be confidential and to help you in some way, shape, or form, it's okay to share it with them. I wouldn't share it with all 10 of your teammates for sure. I would talk to just one person, kind of pick and choose who it might be best. In terms of your boss, again, it's whether they're going to be supportive or not, because again, you don't want to come across as, I'm feeling really lazy and I'm not doing my job anymore. So what can we do? Obviously, that's not how you want to approach it. So with your supervisor, it's going to be dependent on who they are as a person and what kind of relationship you have with them. And the way that you could position that, if you wanted to, is, I feel like I want more challenge at work. So can we talk about this? That's a good way to say it. Human resources, again, it's going to depend on the organization. We have had clients, for example, who work at Georgia Pacific here in Atlanta. Their human resources department is actually very good at helping them develop a strategic career plan. Like, where do you want to go? And hey, we can move you around. Some companies are great at that. Others are not. So you do need to pick and choose based on your organization, the culture, who's who, and kind of what's what, if you will. Who is going to be the best person to share with. Get their advice and their thoughts about what helps keep them engaged. And by the way, if no one at your organization if it doesn't feel comfortable for you to do that, that's okay. This is where you could go to industry-specific association meetings. You could tap into your alumni network, Chicago, and find a mentor or people that you want to network with and conduct informational interviews with to find out how they stay engaged, for example, kind of stay in touch with them. So it's a great question. You do want to be picky and choosy, so to speak, about who you're sharing with and mindful of it.
Thank you. Your alumni network is an excellent resource for reconnecting. You had mentioned Strength Finders earlier as a tool, as an assessment for finding out that fulfillment, values, personality piece. What are other resources that you'd recommend for discovering those parts of your career plan?
Sure. So the Strengths Finder assessment is great for identifying your strengths. It also bleeds a little bit into what your personality type is, just by the way. So it's a little bit of both of those things, but it's not going to really tell you much about your values, for example. I'll share two other resources, and one will be a shameless plug. Number one would be ONET Center. It's ONET Center.org. That has some great little resources and tools to help you identify, what some of your career values might be, what some of your skills and interests are. It's ONET Center, just like CENTER.org. And then finally, if you really feel like you need to get into greater depth with the career model and all of these other pieces that we talked about, our workbook, we have a workbook. I wrote it after creating the model, a long time ago, starting out as a coach. And our workbook helps you identify all of those different pieces in incredible detail and depth. It's only $25 on our website. I can give a discount to University of Chicago alum. So just let me know if you'd like to look at that and purchase it, and I will give you a coupon code for that. But it's a very comprehensive tool that helps you really figure out, okay, what all of those pieces on the career model mean for you. And then we'll help you decide if you need to make a change or not.
Thank you. How long should this process take? How much time should you devote to writing a strategic plan?
Oh, great question. So it's also something not to think about it's one and done. It's an organic document that should be kind of a living and breathing document. You change and adjust, over time, all the time. But I would give yourself a good, to be reasonable about it, like a good 2 to 3 weeks to write up your strategic career plan, at least, because you need to think about the model and you need to go back to work and see how things are playing out for you, and then go back to the career plan and see what else you may need to change or adjust. So I would give yourself, at least 3 weeks to work through the plan. And then keep in mind, like I said, that you can change it and adjust it. And I encourage you to do so over time. Okay. And it's great to get some good, solid feedback on what the plan is, especially too, not just from a career coach like we are, but from someone within your industry, a mentor who can really speak to your specific industry and your specific position and what your goals are.
Great, and this will be our last question for the afternoon. How does your model fit for someone who's experienced a real burnout and has stopped working for the past few years or has had to take some time off?
Sure. It would honestly be the same. You want to look at it in the same way, except to think about, okay, let me paint the picture of my ideal next step, my dream job, and look at each of those pieces of the model from that perspective to say, okay, ideally, what would be the most rewarding and fulfilling thing for me? What strengths do I want to leverage on a regular basis? What is the right work environment? So very similar to what we talked about, but instead for you, instead of assessing where you are now, it's painting the picture of where you'd like to be in order to define that direction.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and a special thank you for Hallie for these wonderful resources and sharing your expertise on solving career burnout. We hope you can join us next week on Tuesday, May 21st at noon Central Time for our UChicago Connect online industry networking event. This is a great time to reconnect and try to find some new contacts that might help you in the strategic planning process. During this online networking hour, you'll have the opportunity to connect with alumni representing industries across government, nonprofits, business, teaching and academia, science and technology, and finance. It's a really diverse crowd. Please visit our events page at careers.uchicagoalumni.org for our most up-to-date schedule of events. Take care, thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.